Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Young, Wild, and Rich podcast. I'm your host, Dayne Kamela. I am extremely excited. We are bringing back interviews while you're listening to this. And for the first interview, I got a special guest for you. My sister, Danielle Kamela. No better way to start it off by bringing on a sibling. And not just a sibling, but someone who has a fascinating career in the entertainment space. If you don't know Danielle, she is a WWE wrestler, and she has been for about 3 to 4 years working for NXT. Previous to that, she's held many different jobs in the entertainment space, from big commercials with PetSmart, Honda, you name it, well, she got her foot in the door out in Arizona, but she also was a Fox Sports Arizona. So shout out to anyone who followed her when she was a Fox Sports Arizona girl in the broadcasting space. Broadcasting was her first passion, and in this episode, we're going to dive into how she broke in without having a college degree in broadcasting, as well as how she then moved to the entertainment space, landing jobs with the Suns as a dancer, to the Cardinals as a cheerleader, to then moving her way out to LA, landing jobs, pursuing that, and then how she actually fell into WWE. This is a fascinating story, a story of failures and setbacks, as well as a story of successes, and the way to look at this if you're someone who wants to be in the entertainment industry. I'm extremely excited. I'm so proud of my sister and the things that she's accomplished up to this point in her career, and there's so much more that's going to come from this. So we are going to jump in. This is episode number 83. Before we do, the one ask I ask everyone who comes to listen to this show is, if you wouldn't mind subscribing wherever you listen in, whether that's iTunes, Spotify. It helps us reach more young people like yourself to share inspiring stories of people pursuing their dreams of what makes them happy, gives them purpose, passion, and fulfillment, the message and core vision of what Young, Wild, and Rich exists to do. So if you wouldn't mind, subscribe, as well as if you want to leave us a review, that even helps us more. If you ever want to get connected to guests I've had on, or you have someone who you'd like me to bring onto the show, let me know. Reach out to us on info@youngwildandrich.com, or you can connect YWR Podcast on social media. Without further ado, let's jump into my conversation with my sister, Danielle Kamela. Danielle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Dee, for having me.
Of course, I've been waiting patiently to do this type of interview because there's so many things I want to know, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that a lot of people want to know.
Listen, I'm a busy woman. I got a schedule, so.
I know, and trying to pinpoint a time with this woman is not easy, even if you're in the family. There's no easy way to do it, but we're here. We're in the studio of the Young, Wild, and Rich headquarters, aka just an office in an apartment. Nothing special here, but super excited to have you on.
Of course, I'm happy to be here, and I will answer all of your questions and try to live up to your past guests, because you had a lot of great and amazing guests on your show.
Definitely. So let's get started. We typically start after high school. What did the next, couple months, year look like? Did you go to college or not? I know you went to ASU, so tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, I'll try to be as concise as possible. I went to Arizona State University, which you should know, Dayne, because you also went there. It's known as one of the top party schools in the United States, which might have contributed to the fact that it took me 6 years to graduate, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, I majored in interdisciplinary studies with a concentration in communications and tourism. I chose those concentrations just because I was really fascinated with careers that focused on communications. And then in regards to the tourism thing, I've always loved traveling. It's been a passion of mine, and I wanted to kind of learn more about that. So those are the two concentrations I chose, and I had a great time just learning and taking those in during college.
It makes sense, too, because if you don't follow Danielle or Vanessa Borne, which is her Instagram handle, on IG, she travels a lot. She likes to showcase art. She likes to showcase just experience. I think that's a big part of your brand outside of the WWE, so that makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you this. It's funny, too, because I didn't graduate in 4 years. It took me 5 or 6 years, and the reason it took me that long is because it took 2 years off in between. I went to SEC and then went to ASU.
Right.
But I think that's like the normal path now for young people, because so many people don't know what they want to do. And why rush the process, especially if you're going to pay so much money to go to college?
I agree. I don't think you should rush the process because you're interested in a lot of other things. And if you're so focused on school, you might not have a chance to seek out other things of interest.
Right. So while you were in college, because looking at you today, you're in the WWE, you've done a lot of different things in the entertainment industry, Fox Sports Arizona, Cardinals cheerleader, Suns cheerleader, commercials, acting, all of this other stuff. When did that start in the process of going to school at ASU?
After my freshman year of college, I decided I wanted to go out for one of our professional teams here in Arizona. So within the dance scene, there's 3 different teams: the Arizona Cardinals, the Phoenix Suns, and then the Coyotes have a team too, but you actually have to wear ice skates. So I was like, I'm definitely not doing that. So my favorite sport is football. I decided to go out for the Arizona Cardinals cheerleading team. I auditioned and I didn't make it, which I was completely bummed out about because I always thought that would be such a unique and fun experience for me to have. But I am very determined. I'm very hard-headed, so I didn't want to give up on that dream. The Suns dancers had auditions for their team a few months later. I went out for the Suns dance team, and I also didn't make it. So that was 2 failures underneath my belt. But like I said, once I have an idea or something I want to do in my head and in my spirit, I just can't let it go that easily. So I decided to give it another go. I tried out for the Cardinals cheerleading team again the following year, and I ended up making the team. And I was really excited because I love football, I love sports, and I really wanted to make that team. And so I did. And that year, or that season, was actually the season that we went to the Super Bowl. So I couldn't have asked for a better time to make the Arizona Cardinals cheer team.
And then after the Cardinals, how much longer was it before you did the Suns? Because, like you said, you tried out for the Suns as well, too. You didn't end up making it, and then you tried out again. When did that happen after the Cardinals?
Right. So I was on the Cardinals team for 2 seasons. And after my second season, I decided, you know what? I'm still in college. It's a great side job to have, and I still have fun dancing. So I went out for the Suns team after the second season. I was on the Arizona Cardinals team, and I ended up making it as well. So I was able to be on both teams, perform on both teams, and have both of those unique and different experiences.
Very cool. And I know at a point at ASU, you changed your major. Tell us a little bit about that.
My dream job, since I can remember being a child, was always to be a sports broadcaster. So in high school, I was part of Firebird Word at Chaparral. Dayne also went to the same high school. And after that, I went to college at Arizona State. And for some reason, I was like, you know what? Maybe I want to try a different major just to see what it's like and not just go straight into broadcast. So I signed up for psychology. That was my declared major when I was a freshman. After a year in, I was like, okay, no. Why did you not do broadcast like you've always thought of? So I went out and talked to one of the counselors for the school, for Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. And at this time, my grades weren't the best. They were very average just because I kind of slacked off my freshman year. So I went in and spoke with her, and she looked at my grades. She looked at me, and she told me that I should choose another field and that she didn't think I was ever going to make it in this industry. I ended up going into communications and tourism, but that kind of just put me in the right direction since I didn't get into the Walter Cronkite School, and the rest is kind of history.
That's super interesting because I feel like a lot of successful people, and however you define that, people who just achieve and continue to work their way up just like you have done with all the various things that you've done, have had a point in their time when something like that happens. Whether it's someone like putting you down, that could be a friend saying, why are you doing that? Like, why are you doing that? That's not a safe route. You should go get a job. A parent saying the same exact thing, or a teacher, a supposed mentor telling you and trying to encourage you, versus you had the opposite of it, where the person basically said you're never going to make it. And that does two things for, I think, everyone. It either demotivates you and you never go back to it, or it makes you want to show them. And that seems like the latter was the case for you, saying, okay, I'll go get this other major in tourism and communications, but that's still the thing that I'm going to do. How did you respond to that answer? I know you had to switch fields back into what you initially came in. I know you had everyone changes their major in college. That's just what happens. But how did that like fuel your next couple months, or just like your mindset? Did it defeat you for a little bit, or were you just like, let's go, I'm going to figure this out?
Initially, when I was in that meeting with her and discussing with her that broadcast is what I want to do and want to pursue, and when she told me not to and kind of just shooed me away like I was a nobody, I was hurt by that, because this is the person that is supposed to encourage me. It's supposed to tell me, okay, maybe you should get your GPA up, or maybe you could go get an internship. She could have told me anything else, but when she told me that, I was really sad. I remember sitting there and trying to hold back tears, because I was just bummed. I was upset. And then I left that meeting. I think I gave it like a day, kind of just sitting on what she said, and I was like, no, like, screw that. Like, you're wrong, and I'm going to prove you wrong, and you're going to see. And I'm not going to mention her name, but I am going to write her a letter in a few years when I've accomplished a few more things, and let her know, hey, thanks for putting me down, because you actually encouraged me to prove you wrong and to prove everyone wrong, because everyone has haters along the way and people that are going to tell them they can't do something. So I need to put her in her place and tell her what's up, because if she still has that job, I think it's time for her to step down. Actually, she should have stepped down a long time ago, but you know what I mean.
I love that. And then, so you did the Cardinals, you did the Suns. I'm sure those experiences were great, but what I found interesting, just knowing you because I'm your brother, is trying to figure out how you were going to break into the broadcasting industry. You're not able to do the college route, which is big for the broadcasting industry, and we can maybe talk about that. We'll see. But the Suns opportunity and being able to not just be a dancer, you guys did in-game entertainment where you're basically broadcasting for the Suns. An opportunity spun about, which gave you the opportunity to take a potential position with Fox Sports Arizona. So kind of tell us how that ensued and got you into what you wanted to do.
Like I said, after my freshman year, I was trying to transfer into the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism, and I couldn't get in. That was also the time I tried out for the Arizona Cardinals cheer team, was right after I didn't get into the school. And my thought process behind that was, okay, I can't get in to this school where I can major in broadcast, so how else can I break into this field? And what else do I enjoy? What else can I do? So I decided to audition for the Cardinals cheer team, not just because I loved football and because I thought it would be fun to dance, but it was because I thought I would be able to network and I would be able to kind of get my foot in the door through that. That's what happened, because with the Suns, we had opportunities to do different on-camera announcements and things like that. So I think, if I remember correctly, I was doing a Jumbotron little advertisement talking about the different events that are going to happen at halftime. And someone from Fox Sports ended up seeing me through that advertisement and asking me to come in and audition for a new position that they were creating.
That happened while you were on the Suns. You get that opportunity to audition for Fox Sports Arizona. What was that like? How did you actually secure that? Because that's what a lot of people want to know too. How do you get and again, we'll go into like what Fox Sports Arizona what is and all of that stuff, but how do you actually secure that job and actually win that position?
It's tough because I know I was competing with a lot of local actors. And for this position, it was called Fox Sports Arizona Girls, where anyone who was considered for the role had to be born and raised, well, not raised, but born in Arizona. And they really wanted someone who had also attended a university here.
Okay.
So for me, I think I had a little bit of an advantage because I wasn't just an actor at the time. I was someone who grew up here. I was someone who went to college here and someone who had cheered for our local sports teams. So I think that helped me during the audition process and everything like that.
Yeah, because they were looking for someone who not only was from Arizona, loved sports, could also get up in front of a camera and speak. How much experience did you have with that up until that, outside of the Suns and stuff? Like, did you feel comfortable doing that? Because broadcasting takes a certain level of talent that needs to be developed and cultivated. Were you already doing that before you actually were able to get that role?
The only thing I had done within that industry was my high school anchor program.
Okay.
So I had done that and I was comfortable in front of the camera and I still enjoyed it. Like I said, I always wanted to get into the field of broadcast. So getting my foot in the door with the Suns got me this opportunity, and I went in there for the audition, which was just reading a script and making sure I looked good on camera and could remember information and lines and things like that. I went in there and I was like, I need to nail this job because this would just be such an awesome opportunity for me, a great learning experience. And it just sounded like so much fun. So I went in there with just a really positive mindset.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And one other thing I think for our listeners who are tuning into this, as a takeaway, is you don't have to go down the normal path to get yourself that broadcasting job, that entertainment job. You didn't get the normal degree that everyone is saying you need to be qualified to get. You just had determination, ambition, and you looked at what are different things that I can do within the entertainment industry. Okay, the Suns, maybe that will get me an opportunity. Your thought process around that, like maybe that will get me an opportunity. Maybe I can network, was exactly what happened to get you to Fox Sports, which I think is fascinating. Maybe you can quickly tell for the audience who doesn't know what Fox Sports Arizona was, because I think it's one of the coolest jobs.
Fox Sports wanted to create a new concept where they had women who could interact with the fans and let them know what was happening with all of their local sports teams. So their vision for this was to have girls in every single region. They had a Fox Sports network.
Okay.
And ours, of course, was Fox Sports Arizona. Girls to keep the fans informed, like I said, and to go out and interact with them, and to do on-camera commercials, to do different interviews, and to build our social network. So there was a plethora of different tasks that we had to get this concept rolling. And I thought it was such an amazing concept. It was very rewarding to be able to interact with other sports fans who are so passionate, especially the sports fans in Arizona, because as you know, and a lot of people know, a few of our teams have had some rough seasons, so it was nice to be able to relate to them in that aspect.
Yeah, I remember just going to an ASU game with you and Mallory, who was your co-host, who I've actually had on this podcast too, to talk a little bit more about that. Definitely check that out if you can. Amazing girl. I know you guys were super close. And we went to an ASU game, and so many of the fans would say, Mallory, Danielle, oh my gosh, how you guys doing? Because you guys were that intermediary between the team and the fans. And you guys got to go to the games, and you would do commercials or on-air talent type situations, whether it was describing what was going on with the players, how they were feeling, or just explaining a game, and then you got to sit and actually be there with the fans for the entirety of the game. I think it's one of the coolest careers, and I just think it's sad because, again, it eventually came to an end. How long did it last, and what was kind of that decision-making process to stop the Fox Sports from existing, Fox Sports Arizona Girls from existing?
That position lasted for about 5 years for Mallory and I, and we also picked up another girl named Sarah along the way. So we were a trio, but we were one of the longest Fox Sports girls brands because other Fox Sports regional networks came about along the way, but we probably had that position for the longest. And they just decided to get rid of the concept. I'm not sure exactly why.
Okay.
But I will tell you this, we loved the fans. If anyone out there is listening that was a fan and that we interacted with, they still reach out to us. They still try to talk
Really?
sports to us, which is so cool. I wish I had, more of a platform to be able to still talk about that constantly, because I still have such a passion for Arizona sports. But yeah, they just decided to get rid of it, which was a sad day for us because we really loved it and we really had a passion for it.
Are you still a Arizona diehard fan? Has that changed?
That could never change. That could never, ever change. I am a complete diehard for all of our teams here, except I obviously am a graduate from Arizona State. So, I am not a Wildcat fan. That rivalry will forever go on.
Go Devils.
Yes,
I'm in complete
yes.
agreement with you there.
Forks
Do you have
up.
a favorite team out of all the teams, for those wondering?
I think I said this earlier, but my favorite sport is football.
Mhm.
So it's a toss-up between the Arizona Cardinals and the Arizona Sun Devils when it comes to football specifically. But I think just because I cheered alongside that team at the Super Bowl, I have to go with our Arizona Cardinals.
I like it. I think I'm in agreement with you there in terms of football. Played it in high school, no big deal, but we continue to move.
Played a little flag. Just a little flag football.
Just a little flag football. So this ends. The next thing that happens is you decide to go to LA. Tell us about that decision. How does that ensue?
Outside of sports broadcast, which is something I wanted to pursue, I always had this idea in my head that it would be cool to pursue other avenues of entertainment. And when I was in Arizona, I think the last year or two with Fox Sports Arizona, I ended up getting an agency here in Arizona.
Okay.
And basically what that did for me was connect me to different projects and opportunities when it came to entertainment, but all locally within Arizona.
Okay.
So I think I did a few national commercials in Arizona, such as a PetSmart one. I did a car one. I had another gig with a local car dealership here, SRP, just random commercials. So doing that within my last year at Fox Sports Arizona made me think, hey, I would like to do this at a larger scale, or maybe even for the rest of my life, because they're always going to need people of all different looks and all different ages for different acting gigs. So when Fox Sports ended, I decided, all right, I don't have a job. I've always wanted to pursue entertainment. What is the best place I can do that at? And of course, it's Hollywood. That's what everyone thinks. That's what everyone envisions. So I decided to pack up my stuff and just move out to LA. And they usually say you should have at least $10,000 saved up. And if I'm being honest here, I think I had $700 in my bank account. So I was like, I'm just going to make it work. And that's how I ended up trekking out there.
I really like how you were able to do some other stuff that broadened your experience and opened you up more to the entertainment industry outside of broadcasting. And you were in some pretty big commercials. I mean, PetSmart, Honda, SRP, like you were sharing. I remember my friends going, Dayne, I just saw your sister on TV. She's on that Honda commercial. And then, I mean, can people still look that up on YouTube? Or is that stuff still in the interwebs? Because that stuff never disappears once it's live.
So this is a plug, but I do have my own website. It's www.daniellekamela.com. So I have a few links from my Arizona commercial days. Yes.
Awesome. Check that out if you can, guys. I mean, I'm going to check that out too. It's been so long.
You can send me emails there too as well if you want to connect or have any projects you're interested in bringing me on for.
Let's go. So you go out to LA. People say you need a plan. People say you need $10,000.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like you had the right amount of finances in place, but
No.
you still decided to just take action. I'm a big believer in that. Figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it. You get out to LA. Did you have a plan of attack in terms of what you needed to do in regards to how do I start getting gigs now? Because I don't have an agent, which is one of the biggest things. That's what I've heard. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you need an agent in LA. So how did that happen?
Well, first of all, I want to say I did get lucky because there was one of my friends who had worked for Fox Sports in LA needed a roommate at the time.
Okay.
So I was able to kind of move in right at the right timing. So I was good when it comes to that because a lot of people do go out there and sleep on friends' couches. That happens all the time. But that's not what I saw for myself. Maybe I could have made it happen, but I just got lucky when it came to that. But you do need an agency in Los Angeles because the agency is the person and the team that's going to connect you with casting agents that book for commercials, that book for movies, that book for TV and film. So it is important to have that. And I was just like, well, I'll go to LA and then I'll figure out how to make that all happen.
So you figured out where you're going to live first, and then you were going to tackle the other thing after.
Yeah,
not
so
living on the street, not living on the couch.
And some people live in their cars too. There's all sorts of crazy stories out there. Mine isn't as crazy, but yeah, people live in their cars, people live on couches. So I got the living situation figured out first.
And then was the next thing like I need to get an agent, or was it what else do I need to do? Did you seek out help from anyone who was already in the industry? What did that look like?
I did seek out help by just asking friends that were there and that already were kind of involved of how do I do this? How do I get an agent? What is the best way to go about things? And I had started submitting because you can submit online to agencies where you just, oh, here's my headshot. Here's my resume.
Okay.
Sign me, represent me, please. But I really didn't have that big and that colorful of a resume at the time. So I'm sure I submitted to at least 20 different agencies and barely anyone got back to me. And if they did, they didn't want to sign me. So it was very frustrating. I was like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to happen for me? I came out here, I'm going to go broke. I was constantly broke, but the broke where you have to pack up and go home.
Right.
So I did have a friend out there. His name was David. He's still one of my good friends. And he was also in the entertainment industry. He was doing broadcast and he was a comedian, still is a comedian, I think. So he kind of gave me an inside tip about an agency.
Okay.
He was like, hey, Danielle, this agency, I don't know if I should say this and put it out here, but it's fine. I will. It was Daniel Hoff Agency. He said, it's a great agency, but you need a referral to be able to audition for representation. And I was like, okay, well, how do I get this referral?
Right. What's the next step?
Yes. And he was like, you just go in during the open call and say that you know Mitzi. I think that was the name of the person, Mitzi. And I was like, okay. So I think it was Thursday and he told me this on Monday. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go in on Thursday. I'm going to say I know Mitzi. And then I'm going to get this audition to be represented. So I go in for the open call, which I don't know how they can call it an open call if you have to have a referral.
Right.
But I digress. So I go into the office and there's probably about 50 people there. So 50 people who had referrals. So I go in, I sign in on the sheet and it says, who do you know? And I put Mitzi. I stand around because there's nowhere to sit because all of the seats in there are taken. And I would say about 15 minutes goes by and one of the people who worked there, I might have just been like the secretary, was like, all right, everyone who knows Mitzi, come with me. You're going to meet Daniel Hoff. And it was Daniel Hoff Agency. So basically he was the owner and founder of the entire agency.
Right.
And I'm thinking, are you serious? I have to go back and meet Daniel Hoff and explain how I know this Mitzi person? Like, I'm living this lie. But at this point, I was way too far in. I was in too deep. Like, it was just going to happen. So I just kind of thought like, well, whatever happens is going to happen. And if he calls me out and asks me how I know Mitzi, I'm just going to make some shit up. So there was only about 5 of us that had Mitzi as our referral. So we go into his office and thank God he didn't ask any of us how we knew Mitzi. He just basically was like, all right, I just wanted to give you guys some tips for your audition. Just be yourself, but find a way to stand out and stick to the script, and you're going to do great. So that was it. So I was
Wow.
so relieved, and I was like, okay, this all worked out. And then I had my first audition or whatever, and they ended up calling me back for another one. I came back for the second one, and then they wanted to sign me. So a lie basically got me in the door. It gives a whole new meaning to fake it till you make it, you know. That's what I did.
Yeah, and thinking about LA, how many things happen behind closed doors, people cheating their way to the top. It's a very interesting industry. That's an easy way to put it, I would say. So it's a hilarious story though, and I never knew that story, which is even more funny. But once you had the agency, how does that change in terms of going on opportunities, jobs, gigs, things like that?
It was a game changer, because before that I was searching on Craigslist for different auditions and things like that, which some of those are not even legitimate.
Right.
And I was just looking at random casting sites trying to submit. But if you're just someone random and you don't have an agency, they're less likely to want you to come in and to audition. So after I got signed with Daniel Hoff, I was going on auditions multiple days a week. So it was really beneficial for me to have that representation.
So you come from Arizona, you're getting all these jobs, you're a Fox Sports Arizona dancer, cheerleader for the Cardinals, going to the Super Bowl, Honda commercials, et cetera, et cetera.
I lived a great life.
Yeah,
it's been crazy.
You did all this stuff in Arizona, but how does that translate in LA once you have the agency? Now you're getting these opportunities. How many of these are you hitting out of the park?
Well, like they say in Los Angeles, or really any big city, you're a small fish in a big pond.
Mm-hmm.
I would go on auditions and I would walk in and there would be 25 other girls who looked exactly like me that are auditioning for this role. So if I could give one piece of advice, I would say you really just have to have tough skin, because if you're asking how many commercials I booked within my first couple of auditions, I'll say I probably auditioned about 27 times before I booked anything.
Wow.
And a lot of people are upwards towards I'd say 100 before they even book anything. It's really competitive,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to be able to understand and realize that you have to just keep going. Otherwise, you might get frustrated, and then.
How did you deal with that much rejection in that short of a period of time? I mean, you're going on auditions every single week. You could have gone on maybe 5 or 7 in a week. How did you deal with so much rejection? I mean, to put it at what it is.
For me, and being through the experiences I had with not making the Arizona Cardinals team and then not making the Suns team, and just being able to pull out of myself the ambition and the confidence to try again and then actually make it and have that happen. I went through, not getting something and then trying again and getting it. So I think that having that experience really helped me. But I also tried to listen to a lot of people who have done the same thing, who had gone out to LA and tried to make it, whether it's just to do a commercial or just to do anything. And they've persevered through not making it so many times. So I knew moving out there that this might happen, that I might just get denied over and over and over, but it's just what happens. It just happens.
Right.
And I knew it was something I would constantly have to deal with. So knowing that and being like, all right, this is going to happen to you. You just have to keep going.
Keep going.
Right.
And you had exposure to it early on. You got rejected in your first couple things you even tried for. So.
Right. And even in Arizona, I auditioned for a lot of commercials and didn't get them. But I also ended up booking a lot here versus LA. Like I said, small fish, big pond. So
what I'm curious about too is, do you need to go to LA if you really want to be in the entertainment scene and you want to be successful? Do you need to go there?
No, I think you can have a rewarding career in other places. Like Arizona was actually really good to me because they book a lot of commercials. And so that's what I was doing while I was out here. And I think you can make it a good or decent to a great living doing that in the state that you already reside in, or even going to a state that's not, or a city that's not as big as LA or New York, and still having a really fulfilling career.
Yeah, I really think it depends on what you want, because you can be in the entertainment industry and do commercials and stuff, but if you're that person who's like, I need to be in a blockbuster film, then yeah, you might need to go out to LA. It just depends on what you want to do. And you're the type of person who, compared to me, likes a lot of variety, likes different projects over and over and over again. I work in a normal kind of technology type job, so I'm used to like similar things over and over and over again, which is versus you, which is like, hey, give me this gig, give me this job, let me try out for all these things and figure out what's the next thing. And that has just continued to evolve in your career, which then eventually led you to being in a new industry with wrestling. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of people are curious, but I love to kind of go back and share some of the things, just because it's so interesting to hear how someone got to where they are now while we're still very early in the journey. So how did the wrestling thing come about? Was it in LA, and what happened?
Right. So even though I was signed to an agency and they were giving me opportunities with auditions and things like that, I still was checking Craigslist because I was trying to do anything I could to find as many opportunities as possible. And I think it was on Craigslist that I saw there was an audition.
Craigslist.
Because I feel like so many people think Craigslist is so sketchy, which at times it can be. But I've actually booked some entertainment gigs through Craigslist. So, and this is one of them. So I saw an ad for a show called Tough, which I didn't know much about at the time, but I was reading on it, and it was a reality television show that gave you the chance to compete for a contract with the WWE. And I have never wanted to do reality TV, but I looked at that and I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? I've always loved wrestling. We grew up where our grandfather was a huge wrestling fan. Dayne and I's grandfather. And so he's not, I don't know if he is anymore. He should be now that I'm a wrestler. But anyways, so we used to watch people like The Rock and, Stone Cold way, way, way back in the day. So I saw that ad and I was like, I've always thought that being a WWE diva would be the coolest job. Like, how badass is that? That would be amazing. But I also thought like that was so far-fetched. So when I saw that ad, that came back in my head and I was like, this is my chance to possibly do this crazy, crazy thing that I always thought would be so awesome. So I sent the email and they said they wanted me to audition for the show. I didn't make it on the show, but they said, hey, you know what? We want you to come back for a real 3-day tryout here at the WWE Performance Center. So get some training maybe in the meantime, and then we'll see you in a few months.
So tell me about the Tough Enough tryout. Like, what was that like? Was it hard? Was it, because you're going in pretty much blind. You don't know what it's going to be. Right. You just know, hey, there's this reality show in the way of me potentially signing a contract with the WWE. What did you have to do with that? Like, what was that experience like for anyone curious?
The audition, or I should say the tryout, because technically it was a tryout, was the hardest thing I think I've ever done in my entire life. And I've done things that are very difficult. I've hiked Machu Picchu, Huayna Picchu, Haina Picchu. I've done a lot of physically strenuous things, and this was so hard.
I mean, you were a gymnast too, and this was...
I was a competitive gymnast. But this experience, I was never a weightlifter or anything like that. Like, I knew how to lift weights, but we were doing clean and presses and things I had just had no experience with. So it was very, very difficult.
And when you didn't get it and they said, we want you to try out, did they offer that to everyone who didn't get the role, didn't get the role on the show? Or do you think it was just your effort that you put in because you were trying so hard to make it?
I'm not sure if I just wasn't crazy enough for the show or I didn't act crazy enough.
Good point.
Because with reality TV, you want people that I don't want to say that are crazy, but people that come across as a little out there.
Yep.
And I like to consider myself, very even keel, very normal, just, regular cool ass chick. Anyways, so they offered it, I don't know, I think it might have been to 2 of us that they might want us to come back for a tryout.
Okay.
And WWE does tryouts, multiple tryouts a year, because they're always looking for the best talent from all across the world. So after they told me that, I was like, all right, I need to find a wrestling school, because I want to make sure this is something I really want to do before I come back for a tryout and then potentially get a job and then figure out after the fact that I don't like wrestling, So I found a wrestling school called Knox Pro in Los Angeles. That school is ran by Rikishi, Reno, and Gangrel. And I started training during at night times. I think they trained like 2 days a week, maybe on a Saturday as well. So I did that alongside all of my auditions and things like that. And I fell in love with wrestling, and I knew it's something I wanted to pursue. It combined all of my passions.
Mm-hmm.
It combined entertainment and theatrics, and then physical combat, I guess you could say, because I was a gymnast and I was athletic growing up, and that's something that I wasn't too involved in when I moved out to LA. So it really kind of filled that void as well. So I knew I wanted to do it.
Yeah, just like thinking about that form of entertainment versus what you were maybe doing during the day, going on auditions and stuff, and then getting to come and get in front of a ring, put on an act because you were probably playing multiple different characters, whatever it might have been when you were training at Knox Pro, and having the physical side of things and the training side of things, and then, getting ready. Like how long was it before the tryout from when you started training?
I think I had about 5 months to train before I had my tryout. So I really got the fundamentals, the basics, which is so important in professional wrestling. To have the basics and that foundation is key, because you just keep learning from there. But it's kind of like, I want to compare it to math, which is something I hated. But when you learn the foundations of math, like addition, subtraction, and then you go from there, if you don't know those basics, you're not going to go anywhere. Like, you can't learn on top of it. So learning those basics and going into the tryout with that, I think really helped set me apart.
Yeah. And then the tryout comes out, like the tryout happens. What was that like compared to Tough Enough?
I would say it wasn't as difficult, just because they were filming our audition for Tough Enough. So they're going to amp it up. They're going to make it 100 times more difficult. But it was still extremely difficult. And again, one of the hardest things I've ever done was my tryout. It was you had to have really good endurance. You had to have perseverance. One of the key things they look for in someone is someone who's coachable. You need to be able to, if you roll and it looks a little sloppy and they tell you, okay, you just need to adjust your foot. If you don't do that the next time, how are you coachable? You literally did not listen. So that was so important. And then we also had to cut a promo, which means go up and kind of, if you have a character in wrestling, because there are people who are already independent wrestlers who tried out, they could say their promo or in their wrestling persona. But for me, I didn't really have one yet. So for my promo, I just went up there and talked about how I was sick and tired of being a cheerleader on the sidelines and I wanted to be the star. And it was true. So.
Okay. You do the whole audition. What is the next steps? Like, when do they let you know that you made it? Because again, you've been in the WWE for some time now. How did that happen?
The next step was just to wait.
Okay.
Which kind of sucked because I was so anxious and just excited to hear back. And I wanted to get it. But I do know, walking out of my tryout, that I gave it 110%. I really put everything I had into it. And when I left that tryout, I was like, there's no way they're not going to sign me.
Really?
Yes. I was like, there's no way, because I killed it. I know I did an amazing job. And they have to sign me. And if they don't sign me, they're missing out. So
I remember too, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on the timeline of this, but I remember going out to LA and watching you wrestle at Knox Pro. And it was your last day wrestling there, because I think this was after you had got the confirmation that you were going to the NXT. Is that true?
Yes, yeah.
And I'd never seen you wrestle ever. And I remember just talking to you about the whole experience going through this while you were, going through it. And then going out and seeing you wrestle, I was like, that one night of watching, I was like, Danielle can do this. This is crazy. This is so entertaining. Like you said, it was really fun to watch when we were younger at the grandparents'. We were playing it on the Nintendo too at the same time. And just seeing you wrestle that night, it was like a confirmation for me. Like, my sister's going to do this. Like, she's got to roll with them now. Like, she's going to be moving and doing that thing. Like, she's going to be really successful at this, and the rest is history. So they sign you. We don't have to go into all of that, but you have to move to Orlando, correct? Because that's where the Performance Center is for NXT?
Yes. They have a training facility there, the Performance Center, like you said. So all the new talent have to move there and train and perform at the Performance Center, because a lot of people who get signed are working from the ground up. They have no wrestling experience. And like myself, I knew the basics, but that was it. So I really still needed to be trained and molded into a superstar. So
yeah, and I know with the NXT, some people might look at it as, oh, it's the developmental, but it's really become its own brand now, right?
over the past 4 years that I've been there, it has completely turned into its own brand. And I would say even before I was even there was just so many talented men and women that were putting on high caliber matches and high caliber content and sports entertainment. So I feel like all along, like, it hasn't been a developmental brand. It's really been alongside with Raw and SmackDown. And I'm proud to say that I was and am a part of NXT.
And I can attest to that by when Danielle came out here to Phoenix and I got to see you wrestle in the NXT for the first time. I didn't know what to expect, but the fans are absolutely crazy. It was extremely fun from an entertainment standpoint. I haven't never been to a wrestling match. I don't know. I did when I was younger, but it's been so long. I was blown away. It was such a fun experience getting to see you do that. It looks it looks very difficult and challenging from an intensity perspective, endurance, all the other things that anyone could ever imagine. But it was so cool to see that. And now that you've been doing it for an extended period of time, a question that I have, and maybe a lot of people, is what has been the biggest takeaway from you from an experience standpoint as an entertainer? Because this was so new to you too. You said, hey, this could be another thing that I could learn from, childhood dream, if you will, and now you've been doing it for a while. What's that experience been like from your career perspective?
One of the biggest things I've learned being a WWE superstar and doing these theatrical performances in front of live crowds is to not let my own insecurities get in the way of what I'm putting out there. Because when I'm authentically committing to what I'm doing and living in the moment of a match or a promo, it's so real. It's just, and it is real because you're in that situation. So I feel like for me, when I don't let the doubt get into my head, I don't let any kind of distraction get in my way, it's really helped me to flourish with what I'm putting out there and with the matches I put out for the audience and for TVs and everything like that. So for me, I think the biggest lesson I've learned is to be confident and to believe in myself and my training and all the preparation I've put in.
Yeah, no, I love that. There's so much to learn from this experience, and you can take it in a lot of different directions. I know you want to do a lot more from conversations we've had within the WWE, just like everyone else. You're kind of competing. You're competing with everyone, and everyone's trying to continue to move their way up and work into different things. Let me ask you this, and just a couple more questions and then we'll conclude. For the experience of now having a platform, because that's really what comes with the territory too. You have this brand, you have Vanessa Borne. What's Vanessa Borne? And I know I haven't even addressed it on this conversation we've had so far, just because we've been talking about so many things. First half of 2020 has been really weird. Everyone's kind of been staying at home. Everything's kind of been shut down in some way or another. How are you thinking about your brand, what you want to put out there? What even is kind of your brand, if you will, on like even social media, right? You have an Instagram following, Vanessa Borne. People can check that out. But what kind of message do you like to share, and what does that mean to you?
For me and my brand, I really try to put out content that I like personally. I don't ever want to think like, oh, what do people want to see from me? What's going to get me likes? What's going to allow me to gain more followers? I never think that way when it comes to my brand, because it's my brand and I want to put out content that's true to me and things that I like. So I like art, I like culture, I like things like that. And I'll put out a picture that I think is really artsy and creative, and it might get, I don't know, like 20 comments. And then I'll post a picture maybe where I look really good and it'll get tons of comments. But for me, I just want to put out what I like, and I want to put out things that can allow people to see and say, oh, she puts out content that's unusual or different. And that's just because that's her. And I want to encourage people to just be themselves when it comes to social media. You don't have to post things just because of the likes or because it's trendy. Post what you want and what makes you happy. And that's what I've had to learn, and that's what I feel like I do. And it's made me a lot happier on social media, because there is a downside to social media.
100%. I completely agree with that. I think just being observant of what you put out there on social media, it's not about, oh, look at me, look at me, look at me. Of course, everyone posts photos of themselves, but you're not chasing the followers. The followers come because of they want to know what you're up to. You're posting things around art, creativity, you love going to museums, you love traveling and experience, and you're staying authentic to who you are.
Right. And I'm not putting down anyone who posts those kind of posts, like, bikini photos or just beauty photos, because I love looking at that content as well. But if that's what makes you happy and that's what you enjoy, then you should do it 100%. So, but for me, I know I can think like, okay, if I post this type of photo, it'll get me this many comments or this many likes. But I really just try to post what makes me happy and what I think might be different for someone to view or enjoy.
Yeah, that's a really good observation too, because so many people are looking at, what do I need to please someone else versus what makes me feel myself, versus trying to be someone else.
Right.
It's really challenging, but that's another conversation for another day. So I have 2 questions left.
Okay, let's do it.
One question is for your fans, all the people who are diehard Vanessa Borne fans. It's 2020. What's one thing you can share with them in regards to how you're looking at this year? I know we're already halfway through this year, but what you're thinking about and how you want to continue to do your thing. What would you want to share with your diehard fans?
To everyone who supports me, follows me, or has seen anything I've done, I just want to say thank you so much for your support. It really does mean the world to me. Being in this crazy industry, there's a lot of highs and lows, and you really do get criticized for almost everything you do. And as performers, we are always trying to put on an amazing performance and experience for our audience. And I really do just appreciate your continued support so much.
I love it. Last question I ask everyone, and then I'll also ask you to let people know where they can get connected to you for anyone listening in, is for anyone out there who's aspiring to do similar stuff to you, they're early in their journey, what advice would you share to that person that is looking to do, who wants to be in the WWE. Maybe it's a younger girl or a guy for that matter who's like, I'd love to do that. What would you share with them in terms of advice on helping them achieve their goals like you have so far on your journey?
I guess my advice to anyone who's interested in getting into this industry, whether it's entertainment, wrestling, whatever it might be, would be to understand that it takes a lot of grit. It takes resilience. It takes hard work to break in, and it's not going to be easy. You do have to have thick skin, like I said, but with persistence and with hard work, anyone can do what I've done up into this point of my career. I'm really not different than anyone else, but what I will say is that I figured out what I really enjoyed and I never stopped pursuing it.
I totally agree. And again, advice doesn't have to be a puzzle or a maze in terms of how sophisticated it is. It all starts with an idea and a belief in that idea. And if you can have those two things and just constantly be putting effort towards them, you're going to make those things happen. So I couldn't agree more.
Right. I just know that if I hadn't pursued or kept going or believing in myself, I never would have gotten to where I am right now. So
I agree. So where can people find you for those who aren't connected? I know you said a website earlier. Why don't you drop that again, as well as Instagram, best ways to connect or follow along in your journey?
So the best way to get a hold of me is through my website, which is daniellekamela.com. There's a little section on there where you can email me. Other than that, you can follow me on Twitter, which is Vanessa Borne, WWE. And then Instagram is the same, at Vanessa Borne, WWE. So I look forward to hearing from all of you and any of you.
Yes, please reach out, connect, send your comments and thoughts if you listened into this and you're a fan, or maybe you're not a fan, because we got all of the fans, the haters,
Yeah.
Everything in between.
I appreciate y'all.
Yep, we appreciate you all. Keep following along. Dee, thank you so much for being a part of this. It was truly a pleasure, and I can't wait to see what you do for the remainder of this year and going forward into 2021 too.
Thanks, Dee. Thanks for having me.
And that's going to conclude the conversation with Danielle Kamela. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I hope it inspired you. I hope it gave you some tactics, some tips on how to think about this industry as a whole. Because like Danielle said, if she can do it, anyone can do it. It just takes hard work, persistence, and continually working and continuing to go and keep moving forward. If you ever want to reach out to Danielle, you know where to find her, Vanessa Borne, WWE on Instagram, as well as her website, Danielle Kamela. You can check that out. And if you ever have any questions, reach out to us, info@youngwildandrich, if you want to come on or you have a guest that you'd like us to feature. Again, last thing I'll say is subscribe if you haven't yet. Leave us a review. It helps us reach more people like yourself. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. YWR Podcast on social media. Thank you guys so much, and looking forward to seeing you in the next podcast episode. Cheers.